we had the most unusual way to buy a bank. We went door to door and bought options. I tried to buy one in Danville, and then I tried to buy one in Monticello and failed.
I think this is fascinating. This would be really fun to talk about. You didn't get a banking education, but you bought your first bank at 26 years old. How did you do that?
So much in life. You just don't know. You take the next right step, and if you did know, you wouldn't have the courage to do it, right?
We had somebody at the bank, their kid was sick or something. I'd say, man, they ought to make better plans and have to leave and take care of that child. And then I got my kids that summer. I had to learn a lot of things I hadn't learned all that well up to that point. If one of our girls or guys has somebody that's sick in their house, I say, get out of here. Go take care of your family stuff, because that's so much more important.
Anytime I talk to someone about you, they always say this: he's a better dude than he is a businessman. Now, that's kind of a big statement, because you've done quite a bit.
My daddy thought everybody needed Jesus in a job. I was in the pool hall one day playing pinball, and I didn't hear him come in, and he turned me around and looked out there, and he said, is there anybody in here you want to be like? And I said, no, sir. And so he took me to the door and said, I'd suggest you go out and do something. The things that are the most important aren't necessarily easy to measure, and the things that are easy to measure aren't always the most important.
Well, Jess Correll, welcome to Defining Moments, my friend.
Good to be here.
I know
JP.
of all your achievements. I mean, this one has to be near the top, being invited to sit down and talk with us.
Absolutely.
Well, you have had an illustrious business career, Jess, but, anytime I talk to someone about you, they always say this: he's a better dude than he is a businessman. And that's kind of a big statement, because you've done quite a bit. So it's an honor to have you on here. But MK, maybe for starters, so our audience has a little idea on a quick history, let me give a little color. Does that sound
That
good?
sounds great. We're just excited to have you and dive in and talk about some real stuff today. Yeah, let's get the history.
So founder and president and long-time chairman of First Southern Bancorp, a Kentucky-based holding company based in Stanford, Kentucky, baby, which is the holding company for First Southern National Bank that you guys over the years have turned into $1 billion bank. UTG is an insurance company, highly successful, that sits underneath the holding company. I can't wait to talk River Foundation with you, because honestly, Jess, getting to know you, that is so integrated into the fabric, I think, of everything that First Southern represents. And MK, I actually met Jess at the Kentucky Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame. I went up and introduced myself to him because everybody told me I needed to meet this guy. You were inducted into the 2008 Kentucky Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame, and as a seventh generation Kentuckian from Somerset. What was going on in your mind the night you got inducted into the Hall of Fame?
JP, I remember meeting you that night. I think I went back and told Doug, Ditto, my partner, I said, hey, I met this guy, J.P. Blevins. So you made an impression on me that night. But, it was humbling. And I was put in that year with Joe Kraft and Don Ball, and, two great guys in Kentucky, and friends, both of them friends of mine, and just to be mentioned with those folks was almost better than a dream.
Sure.
It was quite a night. But there's always things that will put you in line. I remember after making my talk, my grandson was sitting at the table right at really close, and when I came off the stage, he got up and came to shake my hand. He's only 10, and Roman and Adrian's son, and he said, I thought he was going to say, Poppy, that was a great job, and he said, Poppy, can I have your cake? He'd listened to that whole deal, and the only thing he was concerned about is the cake I hadn't eaten yet.
Priorities, right?
That's so good. Well, I moved back to Kentucky after being away for 10 years, kind of right before COVID. And I would ask people, I said, who's doing business the right way around here? Playing the game at a really high level, but, man, doing right by their people, doing right by their communities that are giving, and your name just kind of kept coming up. And after now getting to know you for 4 or 5 years, I can see why that has been. So it's an honor to call you a friend. But maybe, MK, if it's okay with you and okay with you, I'd like to rewind to kind of growing up a little bit as a kid, kind of the adolescent years. Your parents clearly had a massive influence on you. But looking back at your childhood, are there any defining moments that stick out as maybe helping shape you and who you are today the most?
Oh, sure. You know, I think the first one was being born in America, in Kentucky, in Pulaski County, to Christian parents that loved us and cared for us, 1 of 7 kids, and taught us to work, taught us to love Jesus. My daddy thought everybody needed Jesus and a job. And,
Jesus and a
He's
job,
right.
heaven.
That's
a good statement. Yeah, it is so true.
And so, you know, I just can't, I can't hardly describe the benefit of being, some of my friends say I turned out as bad as I could turn out with the parents I had. And it may be true, and because they were very, very instrumental in our growth. And really, my dad thought I could do anything, and encouraged us to try anything. And you know, when you have people in your corner that thinks you kind of become the people that people think you can be. And he always told us, I mean, we've talked about this before, JP, but you become the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And he really encouraged us. I remember he owned a shopping center in town, and I was in the pool hall one day playing pinball. And I didn't hear him come in, and he came in and got me by the ear and turned me around and looked out there, and he said, "Is there anybody in here you want to be like?" And I said, "No, sir." And so he took me to the door and kind of gave me a side kick out the front door, and he said, "I'd suggest you go out and do something." Yeah. And Mom and he and Mom both just were great encouragers, great examples. My mom was the first one up every day, and she was at the head of the table where Daddy usually sat. Of course, nobody was up. It was just she and a cup of coffee and her Bible. She reading her word every morning. First thing I saw my mother doing. And so, you know, just great examples that have really done me well through I'll be 70, my birthday in May, and you know, it's those lessons that they taught me and taught our whole family were just invaluable.
It's such a gift. You know, I think we often, you can take for granted where you came from, but it is the lottery of life if you get great parents. 'Cause your whole lens of life, I think, comes from that. And your lens of your work ethic and your belief that you could do anything, your dad modeled that for you and first showed you. Raise the bar. I mean, as a parent, raise the bar. I feel like kids will rise to your expectations. Raise it high for them.
Absolutely.
Or fall to them, right? And
It's true.
What a gift that is. And that you recognize and honor it, right? It's set you up for success.
Oh, yeah.
And they really encouraged you entrepreneurially too, right? I mean, I think I've heard you say, like, even he said, didn't your dad say even if you make less money, figure out a way to work for yourself? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
JP, he really did. He wanted us to kind of work for ourselves, and then he had one really strong point that helped that. He didn't give us any money. He didn't believe.
Nothing will encourage a little entrepreneurship like go work for it.
He did not believe in allowances, and so he kind of had us. You know, we always had cows and a huge garden and sold watermelons, and I mean we did everything that you could do as a farm boy, and just worked all the time. You know, tobacco warehouses. I remember we'd go every fall and work in the tobacco warehouse in Somerset, and it was just expected to. And MK, we were saying that this morning. You don't say you were bored. You never said you're bored.
That's a
around
curse
our
word
house.
in your house?
Yeah, Daddy'd make sure you weren't bored. You may not might like his medicine for that, but he'd make sure you didn't say that.
Yeah, if you were bored, you just pulled weed duty out back,
that's
right?
That's right.
I sometimes can dream of being bored, but that's not something, right? I mean,
Didn't you also sell Bibles door to door growing up?
I did that. That was huge. That was really huge in my life too. Between a junior and senior year in high school, we had this guy that came in and sold Bibles from Oklahoma, and he started dating my sister's best friend, and so we met him, and he recruited me to go that next summer to sell Bibles in Waycross, Georgia. And it was hot.
you just go door to door selling Bibles,
Door to door
knocking on
selling
doors.
and walking.
Wow.
And so we went down there, and two of the guys that I was rooming with, they drove me down there, or I rode with them, and then I walked every morning. And so I turned 17 on the book field, and so it was a unbelievable. It was the best experience of my life up to that time, and the hardest experience of my life. And 80 hours a week, selling Bibles door to door. You'd hit the first one at 8 o'clock in the morning. Generally, about 8 or 9 at night, you'd quit. And you learn not to have a big problem with rejection. Some people didn't like what you had to do, but other people did.
Yes.
You just kind of had to keep on going. And then probably one of the best things that happened in my life after having great parents and knowing the Lord was my second summer. I went down and met Doug Ditto, who became my lifelong friend, and we've been business partners for 4 decades. But met Doug, and I was going to go to Western, and he. I asked him where he was going to school, and he said Asbury, and I'd never been there before, but somehow we got in. I think Doug applied for me, and you had to put down what your salvation experience was, and I think Doug asked me a few questions and wrote that out for me. It's always good to have people that are gifted in things you're not gifted in, but Doug has been a longtime friend and partner.
Yeah, I know. I want to talk a little bit about Doug a little bit, but you know what's funny? When I read about people, how often some of them either had a paper route as a kid. Mm-hmm. There's something about the discipline, rain, sleet, snow. Wow. They're getting up at 500 and they're getting this thing's got to go. Or the people that went door to door and had to face rejection. And it's almost like you learn, like, some will, some won't. Next. And it gets... Right? Is that kind of what that taught you a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. It was just the perfect thing for me at that age, and I'm just thankful. I'm just thankful that it even to leave and go that far from home to even thought that it's something I should do. Sure. I still look back and think if I'd have known how tough it was, I guarantee you I would not have said yes. But,
Isn't that the way life is?
So much in life. Yeah. You just don't know. You take the next right step.
Right.
And if you did know, you wouldn't have the courage to do it, right?
I feel like that's why the Lord doesn't show you the whole plan. Because if he did, you probably would never take the step.
But it was a great experience.
So you head off to college. Your friend Doug, you go to Asbury, and now we now know that we need to thank him for writing your entrance and your application. But I always think a lot of people that have had the kind of entrepreneurial career. I mean, you had parents that encouraged you that way. And I always wonder, how much is hardwired from birth versus how much was programmed into me. But I mean, didn't you try to buy the water company when you were at Asbury? Mm-hmm. I mean, what was that about?
Well, we, I don't know. It was just the environment that my father being an entrepreneur, it's what we talked about every night at dinner. He'd just tell us what he'd done that day. and I never wanted to do anything else but be a business person. I mean, I just wanted to be like Dad and wanted to do what the way he had done it, and so it just all those things. It's hardly anything you cultivate. When we were in school, we heard about this guy that was buying diamonds and selling them to his friends who were getting married at Oral Roberts, and he wouldn't tell us where he was getting his diamonds. So Doug's brother and I went to New York, and my brother, and we just read the biggest ad we could find was Harry Winston. And so we just got an appointment with Harry Winston in New York the same week that we went up, and we had signed up for a GIA, Gemological Institute of America. You could learn the grade of a diamond.
Like evaluating the diamond.
Yeah, evaluating diamond. 4 C's of diamonds and color, clarity, and carat weight, and just all the stuff, so you can loop it and see what it was. And we started selling diamonds to our friends who were getting married and in college, and we tried to buy the water company. And my guy that was helping me was my teacher, Harold Rainwater. He's still the mayor of Wilmore.
Wow.
And but they own the water company now. But then we started in the jewelry business, and we're just nominally successful at that. But my little brother, after we got out of school, he wanted to take it over, Vince, and he was my partner in everything. And he took it and ended up with 11 jewelry stores and a wholesale jewelry company and a diamond buying office in Bombay, India for 25 years. And
Wow.
so he took it and was very successful with it. And but I don't know. It was just we'd see something and it sounded all right. And a lot of the stuff we did, we also were, I think we tried landscaping, and that didn't last long. We did one, you can take these little Polaroids, where you'd see before and after.
Sure.
And I found that the other day, and I swear I think the after looked about as bad as the before.
That would not be good for marketing.
Gift, right?
I still have that book that has the Polaroids in it, and but we tried horses. We tried buying horses, and I think we bought some horses for a couple of $1,000 a head, and then got a breeding fee, and I think sold all of them for half of what we had in all of it. And Dad said he was going to have to get a bigger truck to make that work. And so we had tried a lot of things, but you kind of discover what you're good at more than I think as you go along.
What do you think was the key in you taking those risks, just believing you could do any of it? What do you think was the key to that?
I don't know. I really don't know. It seems improbable as you look back over it, but it seemed easy, and I think it's a gift from the good Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's he says every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, and I just think it's I think you can't brag about it because it doesn't seem that you had that much to do with it,
Yeah.
I think there's always a combination, but I mean, clearly you had hustle. I mean, you're looking at ideas, whether you're trying to buy diamonds, buy the water company, do some, I mean, that is a part of you. And whether that was programmed, I think maybe it's a combination of everything. But one thing I love, and you're talking about Doug, right? And so you went to Asbury, and then he bounces on you and goes to Oral Roberts. And then you call him, it's like, well, Doug, I'm just going to come up and hang out with you and go to school with you. And basically said, well, I don't think you can get it. He said, oh, no, that's not a problem. But you just showed up at Oral Roberts and said, well, I'll just start showing up class. They'll eventually take my money. How does that even happen?
Yeah, that was foolish. Really. I'm sure that's not the normal thing. But and really, you had to not care about college that much to do that too. And so I was not. if they didn't take me, it wasn't going to be a big deal. But everything in my life has been about relationships. And what we've learned through the years is we valued relationships over transactions. Now you have to do transactions, but my daddy always said that he said business is easy. He said you make people your friends and you ask them for your business. And that's pretty simple. And then the other one, don't you remember we used to say that the customer is always right? Mm-hmm. And I do like, if without the customers, we don't have anybody. But I really, the thing that I've learned through the years is the most important is your team. I've been in the banking business for this is my 44th year. I've never opened an account. I've never been to a closing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't make change accurately. And so, the only thing that I've done in our organization is relationships.
Yeah.
And so, to have wonderful people at our teller line, at our folks that wait on our lenders, that the people that do all of our backroom stuff that I do not know anything about. I'm the least tech savvy person in the world, and it's just team and how. I finally learned, I can't remember, JP, how old I was, but I learned that the way you treat your staff, your team, is the way they'll treat your customers. And I used to be kind of a table banger and say, hey, we've got to do this and we've got to do this. Yeah. And then I really, after learning that lesson, I just said, hey, I just got to love and appreciate my team.
Yeah, so
interesting you say that. It's really, we think we get smarter, but it's really human, right? You think about a 2-year-old, you show them this is how you do something, and we're really not much different as we get older. We have to model, and then that's adapted. Leadership is crucial, but it's so interesting. You understand so deeply that the economy exists for people and not people for the economy.
Absolutely.
And if you get that right, I think it's everything. But how have you been able to keep that in your organization as it's grown so big?
The great thing is I think the Lord has crossed paths with so many great people, and we think hiring. I mean, it's just like Coach Pope.
Recruiting the right
that
people.
Recruitment's pretty important. And what they spend, how much of his time do he spend on that? A lot more than game time. And
absolutely.
And so recruiting. I mean, we I don't know how many interviews and how many locations we do before we take a team member on, and because it's just the most important decisions that we're going to make, and we say that we if we want to hire people that you like to have them over for Sunday dinner. And if you didn't want your daughter to work for that person, don't hire them. And
that's a pretty good criteria.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't enjoy sitting around the Sunday dinner table, and if my daughter, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my daughter working for this individual.
Yes.
That'll get to it pretty quick.
Yes. And, I never went to banking school, and I just told her, guys and girls that do lend her money, I said, just lend the money like you're lending it out of your mama's 401k. And that's only if you like your mama. Really that'll really straighten out a lot of the decisions that you're making on loans.
See, you said something, and I think this is fascinating. This would be really fun to talk about. You didn't get a banking education, but to me, a defining moment of your story. You bought your first bank at 25 years old.
26.
26. I missed it by one. We're directionally. But that's a kind of a big deal. I mean, when you think about getting out, you're trying to figure out the world, and somehow you didn't really know a lot about banking, but you bought a bank how did you do that?
Well, that was my third try. I'd tried to buy one in Danville, and then I tried to buy one in Monticello, and failed, and then finally got the one. I went to Clay Davis, who was CEO of the Citizens Bank in Somerset, and I said, "Mr. Davis, how do you buy a bank?" And he showed me this book called Sheshanoff, and Sheshanoff shows all the banks in Kentucky. Well, it shows all the banks in America, but all the banks in Kentucky. And he said, all you have to do is go to the bottom 4 or 5%, and they're all for sale. And he said, it doesn't matter if they think they're for sale or not, but they're all for sale. And finally, Lincoln County Lincoln County National Bank had an illustrious 100-year history, and had a few bad things happen for about a decade. And I called the guy up and asked him, the chairman, say, "Hey, is your bank for sale?" And he said, "Yes, it is." And in all of my history since then, I've never called the bank up and said, "Are you for sale?" And they said, "Yes."
As a matter of fact, it sure is. I'm glad you called today.
I said, "Well, I'll be there in 45 minutes." And we made a trade that day, and then they fired him that evening. The board did, and so we ended up going door to door. We had the most unusual way to buy a bank. We went door to door and bought options from all the people in the community, and got enough to get control of the company. And then that was kind of the start of our banking career. But I understand land and
Yes.
and business, and I really do enjoy. I mean, you have to be very odd to enjoy looking at balance sheets and income statements. I mean, I can get lost in that and just really enjoy doing that. And I mean, not many. My wife cannot stand it. Angela, if she having to look at income statement, balance sheet just drives her crazy. But
She doesn't have
I actually love it.
Yeah.
And then that's a gift, right?
Right.
Like,
It is. It is.
yeah. Did you think, all right, if I buy this thing, somebody's going to have to operate it?
Well, we got the bank bought, and I said, "Well, Dad, who are we going to get to run it?" Because my dad was signing my note, and I think I was borrowing most of it. I think we had $800 in real money in it or something, and he signed the note and charged me 50% interest in the bank for just signing our note. And I said, "Well, who are going to get to run this, Dad?" And he said, "You know many bankers?" And I said, "Well, yes, sir, I know a few." And he said, "The bar's pretty low. I think you can get over it." And so, I mean, just that confidence that he thought that I could run it was so. I mean, my first day in a bank was I was chairman and CEO, and Miss Matheny was my first chairman when we bought the bank in Lincoln County. And after I had my first meeting, she said, "Could you meet me down at the house?" And I came to her house, and Dr. Matheny here, UK for years, there's her son. And I went to her house, and she said, "Honey, do you know anything about Robert's Rules of Order?" And I said, "Well, no, ma'am." And she said, "That was not a good meeting today." And it was the first one that I had been chairman and had run. Mm-hmm. And she said, "You read this book, and then you come back next week and we'll practice on how you run a meeting." And so I read Robert's Rules of Order and learned how to run a meeting, because that's very, very important.
Sure. I think about the risk that you took. You got to sign a note at 26, and I think it's easier when you're younger. It's like, all right, to take risk. Maybe when I was 28, I took my biggest risk. I wrote an uncomfortable check to own shares of something. I moved 10 hours away from everything I knew. But I told myself, I was like, the only person I'm impacting here is me. I'm not married. I don't have kids, and this thing doesn't work out. I always know the road back home. If I got to eat peanut butter and jelly I kind of like peanut butter and jelly. But it's a little different, you know, when you get and other people are depending on you. And I just think like there's something to taking some risk before it affects a whole lot of people. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Yes, naturally. You know, when you start out, you're really not risking much. You don't have anything. But yeah, I think you have to keep, for life to be interesting and fun, you have to keep on taking risk, and nothing ventured, nothing gained. But I was talking about, if you can take one turn of spin and toss and lose and start at your beginnings and never breathe a word about the loss. And so you have to just be willing to keep on going and keep on taking risk. And you know, another thing that was in my career that was really interesting, because I started out as very much a debt animal, and to start our business. And then we did a Crown class on biblical principles to managing money. And my wife, Angela, says if you're explaining that to what that means to someone, that debt's dangerous, giving is fun, and stuff is meaningless. And saving is good. And, you know, that completely changed the way we run the company. I think at that time we owed 100% of capital. Now you usually buy a bank for something over capital, so we had hopefully a little equity, but you know, it just changed the way we started doing business, and we got out of debt for a bank. And then we encouraged our customers to have lots of margin in their lives and lots of margin in their finances, and which is that's not every bank encourages you to do that. And so it was certainly a defining moment in my life. And then probably one of the most important things that happened to me was after 17 years of marriage, my marriage fell apart. I had, my trajectory had been kind of straight up and to the right, and everything was going great, and as far as I was concerned.
Sure.
And in the middle of all of that, 3 great kids, and my first marriage blew up. And I say the person that liked me, that knew me best, liked me least, and that's a problem. And so, it just changed so much of my view. I think that's kind of where I've gotten more of the team stuff. Is I remember before all that happened, if we had somebody at the bank that their kid was sick or something, I'd say, man, they ought to make better plans and have to leave and take care of that child.
Yes.
And then I got my kids that summer.
Yes.
And I was,
Life happens.
I had to cook, clean. I had to learn a lot of things I hadn't learned all that well up to that point. And I'd tell you today, if one of our girls or guys has somebody that's sick in their house, I say, get out of here. This bank will be here tomorrow. When you get back, you go take care of your family stuff, because that's so much more important.
So it really reordered your whole life.
Oh my gosh, I don't say I was compassionless. I think I had some little bit of compassion before that, but after experiencing it myself, kind of a single parent for several years. It just changed my whole view on life and what's important, and you can have all the success you want in the world, but if your family's not right and you're
To
There's
your
a
point,
guy,
it impacts so many people, right? You're impacting so many other people.
absolutely.
It is so true. We're integrated. So what happens at home comes to the office.
Oh, yeah.
And it matters, but it goes back to your point of people first.
Oh, yes.
And I think you can know in your head, but when you've actually been through something and experienced it, there's no substitute for life experience. And that experience seemed to change you and how you lead people.
And you know, the bad experiences, you can learn. We can learn from bad experiences. So I guess it's don't waste those
The lesson.
lessons in a bad experience. I think that's what they say. There's no education the second kick of the mule, but if you learn from those bad experiences the first time, it's really good.
Yeah, I think when we talk about that, you know, if you learn something, there's really no way to fail. I mean, you either fail or learn, right? I mean, and so
You learn or win.
you learn or win. And said, but I appreciate how open that you are. I've heard you in a couple settings talk about that disappointment and how it shaped you. And you made light of it. You know, you said, "Hey, look, when you come home and the furniture's not in the house, it's a pretty good signal to you."
Well, all the furniture wasn't gone. That was a blessing.
That's a pretty good sign. This is going
Yeah.
the wrong way. It's but there's not anyone that I know that their story, you know, hasn't been laced with some disappointment and mistakes, and things like that have at that moment changed and shifted the way they did life. It seems like that one for you was a absolutely defining moment shift of who I am at home is who I am.
Yes.
And I can go out and do all this stuff in the world, but if I don't get this right,
Oh, yes.
Doesn't matter.
so I appreciate you being open about that. Well, since we're down in the mud, are there any other disappointments or mistakes that pop out that have shaped you?
You know, we've had lots of failures and losses, but really, you know, if you have your health, if you know who's in charge of your life, you have a relationship with the Lord. If you have your health, you're going to have these momentary. And who was Winston Churchill said that success is going to failure from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
I love that one.
And I think that's true. We're just going to have those, but don't let it affect. And I've been better at times than that than other times, but just keep your enthusiasm for life and for what's going on. You're just going to fail. I mean, you can't get it all. I remember mully grubbing about something one time, and this is one of the best blessings of my life. After being single for 5 years, I met Angela Crouch, who's my dear wife for the last almost 30 years now, and I was complaining about something, and she said, "Well, let me get this straight. Now, you want to be right 100% of the time?" And she said, "I don't think that's realistic."
Yes.
And you know, that's really the thing. We're just going to have failures, and we're just going to have to get up and go out the next day and see if we can do better.
It's hard to beat the man or woman and just won't stay down and keep
No,
getting. It's
it's
really
so
hard
true.
to beat that person.
And
so
it's
true.
important for us to have that, because if we got it all right, we wouldn't need God, right? It would be so prideful. Those things that are humbling are some of the best lessons. And I've come to this place in my own life, instead of seeing it as a failure of, what are you trying to teach me here? What can I learn from this? But I do think you learn or you win. But I think when you affect people, it does stay with me as oh, how could I have done that? And have some regrets in that way when it affects people, right? But when you take responsibility and are humbled and pick yourself up and go on, I think there's a great lesson to be learned. But there's so much you learn in the suffering that you can't learn without it.
And you know, that old book says that that the Lord favors the humble
Yeah.
and stands against the proud. And it's easy to be humble when you have lots of these issues. You know, it's and they have lots of failures, and we all have them. I think that's the misconception. We look at people that are successful and we think that, hey, they've done it all right.
Right.
And they haven't done it all right.
Right.
They've all had huge failures in lots of areas. And we need to be kind to everybody, because everybody's got something wrong.
We
Everybody's
always
got
say
a
that.
problem.
We say, I'm convinced everybody's going through something. You have no idea what it's about.
100%.
And you better watch out when one's coming.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
It honestly
it's
gives
just-
you more grace to deal with people.
It's
You know,
true.
someone that, you know, loses their mind, and as opposed to being, you know, what an idiot. Be like, I wonder what else is going on in that person's life to make the fact that they forgot the Chick-fil-A sauce in their bag to lose their minds. It's like everybody's going through something that you have no idea.
And the older I get, the more that you see what's really important. And you know, it's really don't sweat the small stuff. Who I don't know who
And it's
said
all
that,
small
but it's
stuff?
all small stuff.
Right.
Because there's just not much. It's just it's the people and the relational stuff that you have, and that's our partners. We've chosen our team members and our partners so
I
carefully.
want to talk about that because you are a guy that's been gifted with relationships, and you have made mention that, you know, I'm not the biggest detail, but I've got people around me. And I've heard you say that relationships compound. One thing that we were talking earlier is that, you know, one thing that sticks out to me about the First Southern story is you have some really long-term trusted partners that have been together. So as you say, picking your partners well. I mean, I can't tell you, Jess, how many times a story that's been as successful as First Southern, people split off and they're jealous and this one's not fair, but that has really not been your story. How did you know you had the right people? And how has maybe some of those partnerships lasted as long as they have, to your point?
Well, you know, I quote Doug a lot. You know, Doug said, "Who you're with is more important than what you do."
Who you're doing it with is more important than what you're doing.
Absolutely. Pick out who you want to be. Someone that you like their faith journey. Some of you like their marriage. Some of you like their work thing, and go work for them.
Yeah.
I don't care
You
how
spend most
little
of
you
your
have
time
to
with
make.
those people.
Absolutely.
Right?
And but who you're with is more important than what you do. And then Doug always says, if you think compounded interest is big, compounded relationships are huge. And so we're the beneficiary of that. I mean, in the banking business, I just wonder, you know, people just call me up and say, "Hey, Jess, I've got this deal you want to take care of," and it's from 40 years
Yes.
of just being there, and being the number that you want, the next number that you want people to call if they have something that's going on in their business. And I mean, it amazes me, but after this long period, and this one reason that we're so happy our bank, even though it's our 44th year, we have no interest in selling. We wouldn't, all of our folks know this, we wouldn't sell our bank for 4 times what it's worth.
A bank is
So,
not
so
for sale.
The bank's not for sale.
let's talk about that, because I do think every entrepreneur has to decide kind of the end game. You know, are we going to run this out forever and compound it and pay dividends and cash flow it? Are we going to flip this thing to private equity one day? Or am I going to get my golden parachute? And I have heard you say that before, that this bank is not for sale. Can you expand on that, why that is your stance?
Well, you know, Ange married me for better or worse, but not for lunch. And so, you know, I don't think she was certain, you know, everybody wants me doing something and instead of getting into their hair. And it has taken us so long to build our team, and I am more enthused about the young people that we've gotten in our company in the last few years, folks that we're attracting, that know we're not for sale, that know we're not going anywhere, and then we're having the best years of our history, and it's all because of team. It's all because of the folks that we've been able to attract to the company, and our young ones are really encouraging. I mean, they're really making me feel even better than you know, I say I don't know all the process that we have to get hired today. I don't know if I'd get hired by us, you know, but just it's I'm really encouraged by the young folks, and I don't want to sell the platform. You know, the platform is unbelievable, and just think if we sold just what first thing they'd fire me, they'd fire half, you know, third of our staff.
Yeah.
The
And
impact
we
in the
just-
community
Yes.
of
And I'll say this, I've gotten to know some of your people, and I am so impressed. I've never been more impressed. They're just good people that I want to be my friends. And
I
that,
call it the Chick-fil-A of banking.
it's unbelievable. But
There's something
you
different.
wanna
When you go to
have somebody
Chick-fil-A,
good
there
with
is
them.
something different.
There's something different.
It is a chicken sandwich, but
But that culture dies if the leader. I mean, how do you keep that legacy going if and when you start to step back?
You know, we hire people that care about other people. You know, you can treat people, you can teach people their job,
Right.
but you can't teach them to be nice.
Yeah.
And we say swans, smart people that work hard and have a great attitude and just genuinely nice.
You just want to be
You
their
know,
friend.
back to the Sunday dinner.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's you know,
Daddy's right.
Yeah.
Make
right.
people your friends, ask them for the
It's
business.
simple,
you
but
know,
not
it's so
easy,
true.
right?
Yes.
that advice though that your dad of like, you know, just quit thinking about selling something. What if you just went out and made a bunch of friends? You'll probably end up doing some business with your friends.
I probably have made 10,000 customer calls, JP. And I remember when I made that shift in my mind, I'd gone out and made a calls that day and didn't get any business. And I said, you know, I got to change my attitude. I'm going to, instead of going out and say, I'm going to get customers, I'm going to make a new friend every day. And when I started going out that next day and just say, hey, I'm going to make 3 or 4 new friends, and over time, I'll get my share. And you know, that takes all the pressure off and just lets you enjoy what you're doing. And you know, just
I mean, the worst case, you just made a bunch of friends. If we never do a business deal together, but we know if you go add value to people in that way and serve people, it all comes back around. It just does.
And you can tell if it's authentic. You can tell if somebody's just there for the deal, and they know with you it's not. It's truly, authentically, you care, you want to be their friend, you want to serve them, and you're detached from the outcome. And how do you teach your people to be detached?
well, and you know, we want to go to more. I've been to more funerals, weddings,
Baby gifts.
hospitals, you know, just being involved with people.
Yeah.
You know, I call every team member that we have on their 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th anniversaries, and then I call them every year after they've been with me 20 years. I can't tell you the value of those team members that have been with us 20 years. It's just amazing the value it is to our company. And I just call them and thank them for hanging with us and being willing to align themselves with us, you know, especially in the early days. Yeah. And I think our average team member has been with us for 14 years. And I mean, it's a lot for.
That's impressive.
I think of when you say that, you know, the 3-legged stool, right? You know, you got your folks, you got your clients, and you got your shareholders. And a lot of people will say a lot of things, but really they would just want to make sure the shareholders are all right. But, you know, my view on that is if you take care of your people, to your point, they will take care of the clients. And the shareholders will be just fine if you get that order right. Like, to me, you have got that order correct with the longevity of the First Southern employees and how you are talking about the relationship side of this.
Well, and my daddy, Ward Correll, my dad and mom, and my brother Vince, who are my partners, you know, they started us early. We tithe our corporate earnings. You know, we have a public life company, and we even tithe its earnings, and so we give that to charity, and you know, I think someone asked me one time, just think how much you'd have if you hadn't given that 10%. I don't look at it that way. I look at it that we have so much more because we've given that 10% away, And so, you know, Dad and Mother always encouraged us. They had us, our first dollars we ever earned, they had us to go to the bank and get 10% and give to church every week. And that's been something that has been instilled in us. And, you know, when you're taught to do that from the very beginning, it's easy. You know, if you give when it's small, it'll be easier to give when it's large. If you don't give when it's small, it will never be enough. You won't think. You won't think.
To that point, I remember being in church a long time ago, and a guy got up and said, "Man, I know this is going to be hard to believe, but if you can't give a dollar out of 10, if you had 10 million, you ain't gonna give a million." And I was like, man, I don't know about if I believe. I think that's probably true.
It's true. It's true. My granddaddy used to say that. They were so dirt poor. They had 11 kids, and he would give 10% when he didn't know if he could put food on the table. And it's amazing. Will and I say when we give our 10%, it's like the bank account never went down. You know, you don't even see it, but it's true if you won't give when you're.
And that's been a massive part. You talked about Crown and that being a defining moment of how you ran business. The River Foundation, as you said, gives away 10% of pre-tax earnings to generosity endeavors, a lot of Christian mission focus. I think you have institutionalized giving into the fabric of your company. I always seem to think, Jess, you know, you come across as, to me, a fairly happy individual. And I talked to you about this. It's like, I think the one defining trend I have seen of people that have had some success that also seem to be the happiest is they just seem to also be the biggest givers. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's a way to... It's almost a guardrail for money becoming too important or becoming your God. But when you give it away to things that are bigger than you, I feel like it just does something for your heart and soul that no personal achievement can do.
Well, you know, my little brother Vince, my partner for so many years, he said money's like manure. You let it stack up, it'll start to stink. And he said, and you spread it out, it'll be like fertilizer, have some possibility to do some good.
What wisdom.
And then Daddy always said that his antidote to greed was reckless giving.
Reckless giving.
Yes.
You can't be generous and greed coexist. Can't happen.
It just will. If you're feeling greedy, it'll free you just to give something away. Give something you love away.
You know, I think that also it comes with just thinking. Like, you know, sometimes when I've kind of gotten depressed, I'm like, man, I'm only thinking about myself. Let me get my eyes off myself and go think about somebody. It's funny how that frees you a little bit.
Oh,
it's the same thing with money.
Oh,
right?
It's so true.
Giving is fun. It is fun. You said that yourself. But I love that you said to give something you love. I think that's such a good process of becoming detached. Like you said, Angela said, stuff is useless. And it's silly how we become attached to things. But give it away and see how it impacts your life. It's such wisdom.
And, you know, I had an old partner of mine down in Tennessee, Millard Oakley, and I was with him one time, and he gave this ridiculous tip at a restaurant, and he said, you know, if I give 100% tip to everything I do, it won't amount to a serious amount of money for the blessings that I've received. And he said, and it might make a difference in that person's life. And I mean,
might
just
be the
think
light bill.
Yes, you just think about every opportunity you have to go out and bless someone every day. I was seeing something on YouTube the other day, and it was talking about in Monaco where they came up to where they gamble and they drive their Bentleys up, and they say this guy's worth this much money and how much tip he gave. And
like
he gave
$5.
$0, or he gave $5 or €5 or whatever it would be. And I was just thinking, you know, isn't it a shame if God has blessed you with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's an admonition out of the old book that says to share with people that have less than you do. You know.
And I think about it like it's not ours anyway. If it's all His, how are you going to steward it? It's
Absolutely.
a good way to think about
So
it.
speaking of a tip, Jess has had a little bit of the golden touch, and First Southern they've done it. But can I give you a story on a tip that did not work out so well? So I happened to see Jess at Keeneland Racetrack a couple of years ago, And I walk up to him, and he's looking good. I mean, he's got the quintessential Kentucky suede hat on, and he looks like a horseman. And he's walking, and I said, Jess, good to see you. And he says, who you got in this race? I said, well, Jess, I'm just looking at the program here. And he took his sunglasses down. He goes, bet the 4-horse. And I said, well, you like it, huh? He goes, I know the owner, and they love it. And I said, well, man, I should he goes, bet it all, son, on the 4. So I said, so I didn't bet it all. I didn't, but I think that horse has not finished the race yet, Jess. But you was really convincing. Have you always enjoyed the horses?
I go to Keeneland every year, and I don't think I place one bet.
Is that right? Well, I'm glad you
But
told
I
me to
just-
bet it all on the 4.
Yeah, I'm sure I was joking with you.
You,
on
of
that
course,
too.
were.
But it's a great place for Kentuckians to
Oh, it's just-
see your friends. I mean, there's so many people I go
such
up
a
when I
social
see
thing.
that.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly fun afternoon, and the Taylor boys have been just friends and partners for
Aren't they
years,
great?
and they're just wonderful.
Your uncle.
That's right.
What?
Duncan. Duncan's my uncle.
Yeah.
Duncan Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that?
I don't know how I missed that one.
Birds of a
Okay.
feather. No, he's
Oh, no,
great.
I-
he doesn't look like a horseman. He doesn't have
but he is
the best.
he is a fine person. Has been a long time friend, and I guess he may have been one of the first ones that took me up there, but
Yeah.
just
You talk about a generous man.
he
And
is
He's so down to earth and just a
he
wonderful human.
truly is. We love all the boys, all the Taylor boys.
Oh, yeah,
they're
they're
all
great.
great folks.
Now they have second generation coming in.
I wanna ask about, you come across to me as someone who's not in a hurry. And I mean that as a compliment. And I even think you reflected on maybe, that moment, that some of the disappointments, that maybe you were there physically, but your mind was somewhere else and it was tied into work. And I don't think that's uncommon for hard charging, successful entrepreneurs. It's really hard when they go home to kind of find this place to kind of let it go, and they're hard. Yeah. I notice you carry a flip phone. Can you speak to why you carry a flip phone? Is it intentional?
Yes. I don't spend. I forgot what they say. The average person looks at their phone, but hours, and I probably or less than an hour every day, and I do emails once a day in the morning. I don't look at mine. If you're going to get a reply from me, you'll get it by about 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I don't look at my emails. And now I realize we've got a lot of people in our company that are doing deals for people and have to see them. But even then, we can not let it become our lives and still take care of our customers very well. And so it's intentional. And the thing that Dad always taught me is really one of the best things we can do is think. And it's not saying something, but it's saying something and then doing something about it. And the only way you have to do that if you have margin in your finances and have margin in your time. And it takes one to know one. In my early years, I think at the high point of my career, or the low point, depending how you look at it, I had $27 million in loans that I was signed personally on.
Right.
And this was 25 years ago, back when
That's
that was
real
a lot of
money.
money.
That is real money.
And so, the just having time to think, and we have so many digital distractions today, and so I just limit those. I don't have very.
And you and Angela have decided to live on a farm, and you guys have also kind of fallen in love with this little small village in Italy. And I would think those two places would lend itself to being able to slow down. What do you think becomes more clear when you slow down?
Well, you see people. You the blessing of being our little town in Stanford of 3,700 and of 400 in our town in Italy is that we know everybody. We know from all walks of life. And so you just see people. And, you know, that's really what all we have to do is see people and treat people the way we like to be treated. I mean, that's an admonition that we've been given, and it'll work. It'll make other people feel good about you and make you feel good about yourself. And so I think I love small town living, and man, I love Kentucky. I'm just
You and me both.
telling you, rural Kentucky, and I love Louisville, Lexington, and you know, Duke and Owensboro. You know, I love the big towns, but I just love Kentucky. I like Kentuckians. I like the way they think and the way they work, and just it's a gem that people don't know about in America. You know, I see many friends of ours in Italy, and I say, "Have you been to America?" And they say, "Yes, I have. I've been to New York and San Francisco." I said, that's not America,
Right.
and that is America, but it's a different America. Right. And you know, I just love rural. I think part of who I am and who I've become is because we're from rural Kentucky, and it's just a marvelous place.
I always say, like, you know, there's this law of familiarity. Like, I moved away to North Carolina for 10 years, and I think part of me didn't realize, having grown up here, how beautiful this place was. But when I left and came back, it almost took me, it just made me so grateful of, like, how have I not looked out over those rolling hills or gone down to the gorge or gone into, I mean, you and Will ought to go to Stanford for a date weekend.
I've been to see Jess.
So you and Angela, your wife, who is also an author, have put a lot of time into preserving historic buildings down on Main Street.
Yes.
And you also have a farm-to-table restaurant on Main Street. I mean, it looks like it's like kind of out of a Hallmark movie. Like
Hallmark should film there. It's the cutest,
it really
is the
should.
Cutest town.
And it's an hour from here. It's like I told Grace, it's like one weekend we just need to go do a date where we stay in one of those cottages and we go eat at the Bluebird, and you slow down. Yeah. And it's such a charming little place, but you know, it has that true rural Kentucky feel with a lot of charm. So I totally agree with you.
Let's go.
Well, you're from Edmonton, right?
I am,
and
yes.
so you know, there's so many cute little downtowns, and I mean, we've been excited to bring back a little life into our downtown. It's so fun to come on a Saturday morning and see it full.
Sure.
Yeah,
And,
go down there and get a coffee and walk
yes.
around, and it's really just darling, and it's what I think of America.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's where the Bluebird is. That was a Kroger. I think it was like the third Kroger or something. And so, but it is fun to see our folks want to come to Stanford.
And you've been so integral in that, and it is really darling. So if you haven't been to Stanford, Kentucky, I recommend.
You got to go.
We got to go. One thing I would add to your question of what you get with slowing down is I think that we don't hear the voice of God anymore because we don't stop to listen. And I think that's something I've built into my life over the last 15 years is an hour of quiet by myself weekly. I go down to our chapel. But I think, how are you going to hear him if you don't ever stop to listen? But what advice would you give, knowing that we live in such a distracted age? I mean, I call our phones now are an appendage of ourselves. And it's like you can't do life without it, but you can't do it with it. You can't be present. What advice would you give to people today to try to be in the world but not of the world, and not let those distractions overtake? I mean, I see parents aren't present with their kids. We're always doing 54 things at once. It's hard for me to sit still. And that hour every week resets me to just calm myself down. What advice would you give to people?
Well, MK, I really think my mom had it right then, when the first thing she did every morning was get in the Word. Pray, I may miss a lot, but I'm not going to miss that time with the Lord every morning. And
Because that's first thing in the morning for you.
first thing in the morning, and I'm not fit for human consumption until I've had my, I don't know that I'll even answer stuff right
Yeah.
until I get that, because it just recalibrates your head and your life and what you're going to do for that day. And so I think Mama had it right.
Just the model.
She was my model, and
Life is more caught than taught,
yes,
right?
yes. And so I think that's really the key
On this kind of
a
note,
key.
that's so good. I think on this note of like finding a healthy pace and a healthy balance, you often hear people say, in business, grow or die, right? And I think it is certainly a healthy thing to always be growing. You mentioned earlier you want to continue taking risks, but I've also heard you ask the question before sometimes, what's behind your motivation to be bigger? Can you maybe speak to times where maybe it might not make sense for everyone to optimize and accelerate or be bigger? Because I've heard you mention that before.
Well, I had a friend of mine came to me one time, and he said, "Hey," he said, I'm going to grow my business." And I said, "Well, why do you want to grow your business?" And he said, "Well, I'm bored." And I said, "Well, let me ask you some questions." I said, "What are you in a business guy on a 1 to 10?" And I think he said he was 8. He probably was a good businessman, maybe a 9.
Right.
And I said, "Well, let me ask you this: what kind of how would you rate your faith life?" Ooh, he said, "Oh, about a 4." And I said, "Well, how would you rate your as a marriage partner?" He said, "Whoa, that may be a 3."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, how would you rate your parenting as a parent? How would you rate it?" And it was pretty low too. And I said, "Sounds like you don't need to work on the one that you're an 8 or a 9 on.
Yeah.
You need to work on, say, if you're bored, work on the one that to move up your relationship with the Lord, move up your relationship with your wife,
Yes.
move up the relationship with your kids." And I think that's the temptation that I have, that we all have, is to work on, all the things that are the most important aren't necessarily easy to measure. And the things that are easy to measure aren't always the most important. And so in your life to really concentrate on those things that will make your life actually better
Yeah.
rather than bigger. And what we always say even at our companies is, if we'll get better, we'll just naturally get bigger.
Right.
So
Oh, that's so good.
don't strive for bigger, strive for better.
So
I love
good.
that. And
So good.
oftentimes I think when he's a good businessman in your example, it's easier to go grow your business. It's the harder thing to go work on your marriage and work on your faith life and work on your kids. And so you can sometimes want to do that to numb the part of your life that you don't want to look at.
Yeah.
But I think taking the hard road is always the best path.
Hey, I've done that where I've numbed. I mean,
Yeah.
that I haven't worked on that, and it's a failed program.
Yeah.
It won't work you won't be happy with the results over time.
Well, like some people use alcohol, some people use drugs, and I think we often don't see work as the problem, but it can be a drug as well.
Absolutely.
It's just pick your poison, right? So it's great wisdom. That was great wisdom that you had.
But what is it, Romans 8:28? All things work together for good for them that love God and are called according to His purposes. And I've seen every failure in life has had seeds for greater benefit in it. And I mean, my first marriage, a wonderful woman, and got 3 wonderful children and 6 grandchildren from our marriage, and just the you see, and then blessed with a wonderful life partner with Angela, and really it has every failure has seeds for greater benefit in it.
Such a great reminder of, when you're going through it, if you're listening, you're going through it. It's like, man, what am I learning through this? What am I going to take with me that I'm never going to do this again? And it switches your mindset to know that there is something positive that can actually come out of this. I want to switch the gear just a touch on, you have one of the more giving hearts of anyone I know. I'm not going to say how much money y'all give away, but it's a lot. I don't care how fast you say it. But you're also a capitalist, and you do like a deal, and you've made a lot of them over the years. Yes. And I've had a couple people tell me, it's like, Jess got a little bit like a bloodhound. He can just sniff a deal out. So we talked a little about being born with that, but one thing that you have told me on individual stocks that you own, you won't own the stock unless you can pick up the phone and the management team personally. And I think for me, one thing I've gotten, I have bet on the right people. That has kind of been a gifting of mine. But
sure,
can you talk to that philosophy?
Yeah, I don't have any money in the broad market, and I don't. Matter of fact, I think every stock we own is not owned by an ETF. We buy stuff that we love the fundamentals of, and if the fundamentals don't change, we generally don't sell it. And it's all about relationships. Again, I remember was one spectacularly bad investment I made. I called to talk to the chairman, and he was too busy to talk to me, and that should have been the
red flag.
The red flag that, hey, I don't need to be putting a few $1 million in this deal. And it's amazing. When you're interested in a company and want to invest some money, a lot of they'll talk to you. And if we don't like the management, if I wouldn't buy all the company, I won't buy any of the shares. If I don't like the price, I wouldn't buy the whole company for that.
Right.
And then if I can't have a relationship with and know the management, we just won't invest in it.
Yeah. Do you lean on, there's a gut instinct, right, for people like you that are highly relational, and you've got people around you maybe that fill the gaps on some details, and of course you look at the facts, but at the end of the day, is it a gut call from you when you decide to do a deal or not?
I don't think it's gut. It's more to me of having good counselors. I want to know what our team thinks, and I just these days I don't do much without the team. I might think it need to do it, and so I might invest my money.
Sure.
Mine and Angela's money that way, but unless the team wants to do it, I'm just not much on it.
Yeah, well,
I've always trusting your people. That's great.
Yeah, I've always, I love the markets and always have. I mean, it's why I'm in the wealth management business today. And when I was young, I used to think, man, all these super smart guys out here, they got a crystal ball and they're predicting the future. And honestly, I just laugh at all that now. I mean, really, really hard to predict the market and the futures. But I think what you can do is you can study the past and you can look at the repetition of patterns. And Mark Twain had a quote saying, history doesn't always repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
Yes.
And, I remember you telling me, your dad telling you, be a buyer when everybody else is selling.
He has been a huge contrarian.
And I think, when you look at human psychology in the markets, there's two big emotions. I mean, it's fear and greed. And when people get really scared, they panic and they do dumb things. And if you've got some liquidity and you can hold your nose, and you can probably pick up some opportunities.
Absolutely.
But when you go into in 2020 and COVID, when you walk in and everybody's making a bunch of money on crypto schemes, and the person behind the register at the gas station's telling you what you need, probably time to go build a bunker. Right, and so here we are with the S&P, right? So the S&P has returned 9 or 10% over the last 100 years. But if you had bought the S&P when it was trading at greater than 23 times forward earnings, if you look out 10 years from that point, your annualized average returns would be somewhere between 2% and minus 2%. And so here we are today, trading at about 24 times forward in the S&P. As a banker, lending money to small businesses, where do you sense we are in the cycle?
I don't have, if there's one thing I've learned, I don't have any idea. I mean, I have a thought, but I don't know if it's right or not. What I say is I diversify our investments, and then I invest in companies that have where the management and the ownership are aligned. They have the management own a lot of the company.
Yeah, that's important.
That's important. And then I buy companies that have little or no debt.
Yeah.
And that's the companies we own in the market today. Every one of them except one has no debt.
Wow.
And you think, well, there's not any of those out there. Well, there are.
There are.
And a time when the big seven, magnificent seven as they're called, may start moderating on their price, then those others that don't have any debt and that aren't that high, many times earnings, they'll still be pretty good. And how much my dad had said, how much do you need?
How much is enough? And what's it all for?
Yeah, what's it all for? How much is enough? And those are great questions to ask, and to be thankful. I think a grateful heart is so important for a happy life. And if you're grateful and appreciate the people that are helping you, and in our company, we won't pay anybody more than 10% of our average employee's salary. We just think that's important. Yeah. Nobody's too important and nobody's unimportant. And the average company in America is much higher than that from their leadership. And as we've grown and gotten bigger, it'd be very easy to not do that. And we've had people that haven't come to us because they didn't like that rule. But I think, I tell you, I think it's important to pay your taxes with joy and integrity. I love our country, and we got to pay for it. Somebody's got to pay for it.
Yes.
And so I try to really be happy on tax day.
Yeah.
And and it's something I've had to learn to pay your taxes with joy and integrity.
That's great advice. It really is. I got a question for you. How do you had this level of success. How do you not steal that opportunity from your children and instill in them the work ethic and the drive? How do you keep that going?
Well, my father said, "Don't take the struggle out of life for your kids," and we're trying not to do that.
Will you say that again? Because I think that is so good that there might be some parents out there that want to hear that. Because will you say that again?
Just don't take the struggle out of life for your kids, and again, if you don't give them lots of money, everybody they need to struggle, and it's just part of it. And that's the beauty I see in my kids is they're really taking on things and being successful. And ours are very different, but man, they've all taken on crazy risks on things, and it's just beautiful to see.
MK, to that point, in the wealth management business, I think just the hardest decision I see clients come in that certainly are high net worth or ultra high net worth is this: how do I pass wealth well to my kids? And there's no perfect science, and every family is so different. Every kid is so different. What that family values is so different. But how do you think you pass wealth without entitlement? I know you had mentioned a little bit about the matching of work.
Income,
can you share any thoughts there?
I think it's as important to pass wisdom on as it is to pass money on. If you're just passing money, it'll never be enough. And if you're passing wisdom and money, if you do that in right proportions, that should
Yes.
That should it shouldn't hurt them, and so I just think that's I'm just thankful to my parents for doing that for me, and I hope that we continue to do that for our kids, and we're really striving to do that. And you know, I teach 2 or 3 Compass classes every year and all of my dad had for them to be able to participate in any of his estate. They every 3 years they have to take a Compass class and a journey of generosity, a jog, and it's kind of like who said a simple plan with constant repetition, and you know we have to have that all the time.
Well, it takes us, 5 to 7 times to hear something for it to stick. It's true.
Some of us more.
You were kind enough to invite me to the jog or journey of generosity last year. I attended it in Austin, Texas, and it was so good. So this is an annual conference where there's no ask, but they're putting incredible stories on stage of people that are giving. I mean, you know, reckless giving there was one line that stuck with me because I'm a financial advisor, and they said, you know, God doesn't need a financial advisor. What do you think they meant when they said that?
You know, I don't know the context of that, JP.
I think they were talking about, like, do you do it now or do you wait 50 years?
We're sure, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
kind of like.
I think that is so, you know, my dad always and mother always encouraged us to give today. You know, I've known people that wanted to give it all at the end of their life.
Right.
And we've just we found it very beneficial to give it. Ron Blue says, do your giving while you're living so you're knowing where it's going. And so
Do your giving while you're living so you're knowing where it's going.
Yeah, and so you know, I think that's so good. And and into the relationships, I can't tell you the relationships that we have with people at nonprofits, and that it just added joy in our life, and they're coming to our home, and our kids and grandkids get to see these folks that are pouring out their lives all over the world, and it shows them what's really important.
Well, you miss it if you wait till you're not living, because it's for you. The giving is actually for your own development of becoming detached, right?
It'll make you happier to give it. Yeah.
And you just miss the lesson if you wait till.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I love what Rowan did to you at the entree. Like, you know, sometimes you got to get back down to the back. Like, you want that piece of cake, man? Like, all this stuff, does it really? I mean,
give me the cake.
So as we're getting close to kind of finishing up, you know, we've talked about. So you guys actually helped us. So Mary Catherine and I started a business summit in October. It was just a one-day summit where we try to put value-based leaders on stage to share stories, scars, and have vulnerable conversation. And really, the thought is like, you know, if I can learn from other people's scars and have this real conversation. And mentors, I think, have played such a massive role in both of our lives. And I actually think if you said, what's the quickest way to expedite, go find somebody that's getting the results that you want, or that is the type of human that you want, and go figure out how they've done it. You have made a phone call to Howard Dayton every Saturday, and I don't know how many. In terms of time being our greatest currency, what is it about Howard Dayton that attracted you to him as kind of this mentor type role?
Well, he had. Do you remember that golfer that was on a jet airplane and
Payne Stewart,
and his manager was a really good friend of Howard's. And when he died, Howard told me that he had talked to him every morning, once a week on Saturday morning, and he said they talked about all the stuff, and he would kind of just give him advice, and I knew he was dead, and I said, well, hey, would you do that with me? And Ange and I, we asked him everything about our plans, because we knew he's a godly counselor, and he likes us, and you know, and we'll ask him all kinds of things, and we ask him anything if we're going to spend anything over $10,000. We have to ask him.
So here you are. Let me just make sure I got this right. Before you spend anything over $10,000, you will check in with Howard Dayton.
Yes.
Amazing.
And then I'm a little crazier than Ange, and so she has me call him a lot more often. Or she wants his opinion a lot more often on my stuff, and because mine a lot of times is an investment and on the personal, but it's just been a wonderful thing. I think I've done it for, well, you can look back to whenever Payne died. I can't remember how long that's been, 20 years
That's
probably.
at least, yeah.
But we've been doing it every Saturday, and it's just amazing to have. He started Crown and Compass, and
The business school at Asbury is named after him,
the
right?
Howard Dayton School of
The
Business.
Howard Dayton
at
School of
Asbury,
Business.
yes.
And what do you think is the best lesson he ever taught you?
He says, the word says, steady plotting leads to prosperity, hasty speculation leads to ruin.
Yeah.
And I ask myself all the time, is this a steady plotting deal or is this a hasty speculation?
Yes.
And then that all that's required of us is to be a good steward. And so is this a stewardship deal or a get-rich deal?
Mm.
And if you'll answer those questions when you're doing it, it'll you settle those things, it'll straighten a lot of stuff out.
In your quiet time on the farm with your cup of coffee at
That's
5 a.m.
That's right.
There you
got
go.
A cup of coffee is very
It's
important.
very
I've
important.
become a real coffee fanatic,
So it just settles differently. The word settles in when you have your cup of coffee.
That's the truth.
It is.
It's the truth.
So I think for me, I've seen a lot of definitions of success. I think one of the simplest ones that have resonated with me is I want to be excited to leave the house in the morning and excited to come home.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty simple, but pretty profound. If I
Isn't that
actually am
great?
looking forward to my day, I'm actually looking forward to going home.
That is true. That's
That's pretty good.
success,
That's pretty
isn't
good life, isn't
it?
it?
That's right.
What makes you jump out of bed in the morning?
Well, I get to go to work and see all my friends.
Isn't that the beauty of loving the people that you work with, right? Like,
Yeah, and I think maybe that's one difference from me and my dad's generation that a lot of times they didn't get close to their people they
Yeah.
work with, and I'm very close to all the people we work with and enjoy being with them, and so I really do look forward to getting up and I'm thankful for that, and I thank the Lord for health, man.
sure.
As I get older, that health is.
It's-
That is everything. I'm doing my age 3 times a week and sit-ups and push-ups.
You
And
look
so-
good.
and so I'm
I can
trying
tell
to-
you were a
I'm
football
trying to
player
keep-
back in the day, Jess. You still got it.
For one play, maybe. I got one play left in me.
I think this is true. It's like, this morning driving in, I was like, this health thing, right? Anything can happen. I'll try my best. But like, Lord, if you woke me up this morning, I'm not doing anything to keep my heart beating. I'm pretty sure I'm not the reason there's breath in my lungs. But if you have decided to wake me up, I should rejoice and enjoy this day.
Sure.
Because it just doesn't have to be that way tomorrow.
Now, we're kind of in charge of some of the quality of life.
Yes.
How we exercise and diet and everything. But I'm an old Presbyterian. He said, the time my departure's been set.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and health is more than just your physical health. It's your mental health. It's your
yes.
spiritual health.
Yes.
And I think you've got to have all that right. And we try to teach our kids, what are you going to do every day to help your body, mind, and soul? I actually like to say soul, mind, and body are the most important things.
That's so true.
And it's not just, we just think about health physically, right? But you do. It's our responsibility to control our mind and be praying. And I look forward to that cup of coffee in the morning.
Yes,
That'll get me out of bed.
absolutely. Well, and I just want to say thank you to JP and you, MK. It's been fun.
This
We've
has
been
been
so
so much
good.
fun.
I've
This has
enjoyed
been so much
being
fun.
here and hanging out. And
Well, I'll finish with the way I started. If you meet this man, you'll walk away and say he's a better dude than he is a business guy. And that's a big statement. So,
truth.
Jess Correll, it has been my pleasure, my friend.
you're very kind.
Thank you for
those
blessing
words.
us with your time and blessing our audience
Yes.
with all your defining moments.
Absolutely.